If one day, you check into a hotel and the receptionist says, "There's only one room left, it's at the very end of the hallway," would you take it? Or would you quietly walk away? Kevin Lim took it. And he shouldn't have. We often assume that quiet places are safe. But if you've ever been to a mountain town during off-season, you'll know, some places are too quiet. Like time has stopped. Like the whole mountain is listening. Kundasang is one of those places. Kevin, a freelance photographer from Singapore, came here with a single goal: to capture misty landscapes. He wasn't superstitious. He didn't scare easily. And he definitely didn't believe in ghost stories. But what happened to him wasn't something you could explain with logic or a camera lens. In this video, I'll tell you exactly what unfolded. When Kevin checked into the last available room, room 309, in a small hotel overlooking the Kinabalu range. It all started with an old photograph in the room. In it, a man stood taking a picture of the scenery. And his face looked exactly like Kevin's. From that moment on, everything started to unravel. His camera took photos by itself in the middle of the night. He had recurring dreams. Standing atop a mountain, unable to turn back. And at exactly 3 a.m., a voice whispered, "It's your turn." But that was just the surface. The real story began when Kevin started investigating the room. And found out that the man in the photo had gone missing 4 years ago. From that same room. And then he discovered something else. He hadn't chosen the room. The room had chosen him. So what really happened in that mountainside hotel? Why does someone who looks like the previous guest check in every year? Always during the new moon? And the most important question: if it were you, and something deep inside told you not to open that door, would you listen? Don't look away. The story you're about to hear might change the way you see hotel rooms, forever. Kevin Lim isn't someone you'd notice walking down the street. He doesn't dress to stand out. He's not particularly loud. But not withdrawn either. Just a freelance photographer from Singapore. Inching toward his mid-30s. That age when dreams start to feel like doubts. But you're not quite tired enough to give up. He spent nearly a decade working in advertising. The job was stable. Good pay. Creative environment. But over time, the photos he took felt empty. Just images meant to sell things. No emotion. No depth. And that wore him down. Then, one rainy day, he quit. Cashed out his savings. Bought a fresh set of gear. And began a personal project. Capturing places the world had forgotten. Old train stations. Abandoned cinemas. Sleepy towns left behind by time. That journey brought him to Kundisang. A small mountain town at the base of Mount Kinabalu in East Malaysia. Unlike tourist hotspots, Kundisang in off-season is quiet. Almost too quiet. No crowds. Just locals, drifting mist, and rows of pine trees fading into the hills. Kevin chose it for one reason. He once saw a landscape photo taken there. Early morning, mist still clinging to the rooftops. A single beam of sunlight striking the tin roof of an old wooden house. That image left him breathless. He didn't want to copy it. He wanted to listen to the silence. Through his own lens. He didn't book a room in advance. Partly because it was off-season. Mostly because Kevin liked the freedom of arriving with no plans. That freedom was the one thing he'd clung to since leaving the office world behind. He arrived on a worn-down bus with a handful of passengers, while the driver hummed along to an old radio tune. Outside the window, the view looked like an ink painting. Misty valleys, scattered rooftops peeking through the clouds. Kevin pressed his cheek to the glass. Eyes locked on the horizon, as if trying to memorize every frame. And that's when he felt it. Something off. Not fear. Not excitement. Just a strange sense that this place moved on a different clock than the rest of the world. And in that brief moment, Kevin had no idea that he was about to step into a room that didn't just hold memories, but held on to the people who never really left. The hotel Kevin chose was tucked away on the edge of town, slightly uphill. A 3-story building, its once ivory paint now faded to a yellowish hue with age. An old wooden sign hung from the rooftop, displaying just a single letter, K. No full name, no slogan, no star rating. And no doorman in sight. Kevin rolled his suitcase inside, his camera swaying against his chest. The lobby was quiet. There was a small front desk, an old wooden key rack behind it, and a single silver bell. No one around. He pressed the bell once. The sharp ring cut through the silence and quickly vanished. A few minutes later, a young woman emerged from the back. She wore a white blouse, her hair neatly tied back. A name tag pinned to her chest, Aisha. She offered a polite smile and bowed slightly. Good evening. Do you need a room? Kevin nodded. I didn't book ahead, just need a single room. I'll be staying 3 nights. Aisha typed something into the computer. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she stared at the screen. There was a brief flicker of hesitation on her face. I'm sorry. We're actually pretty full tonight. Most of the rooms are taken. She spoke slowly, like she was weighing something in her mind. Kevin raised an eyebrow, a little surprised. Fully booked? During the off-season? Aisha didn't answer. She glanced at the key rack behind her, typed something again, and after a few seconds, smiled once more. But this time, it was a forced smile. Well, there's actually one room left. Room 309. But it's at the end of the hallway. A bit out of the way. If you don't mind. Kevin chuckled. I'm here to shoot mountains. Not honeymoon selfies. The quieter the better. Aisha said nothing more. She retrieved a keycard from a drawer and gently placed it on the counter. As Kevin signed the guest form, he heard her say something softly, almost as if it wasn't meant to be heard. That room hasn't had a guest in a while. But tonight, you're the first to take it again. Kevin didn't think much of it. It sounded like polite small talk. He thanked her, picked up his things, and headed to the elevator. The 3rd-floor hallway was long and narrow, lined with faded green carpet. The fluorescent lights above flickered intermittently, like they hadn't fully woken up. At the very end of the hall, he found room 309. The brass doorknob was dull. The number plaque was slightly crooked. He tapped the card. The lock clicked. The room was simple. Outdated furniture, but clean. A single bed against the wall. A small cabinet, a wooden desk. Thick curtains pulled shut. But what made Kevin pause wasn't the old furniture or the paint. It was the scent. A faint trace of incense hung in the air. The kind burned during memorials, ancestral offerings, or prayers. Familiar to anyone from Asia. Not overwhelming, but definitely present. Kevin frowned. They burn incense in hotel rooms? Maybe it was just to freshen up an unused room. Maybe it had been empty for a while. Either way, Kevin didn't plan to spend much time indoors. He had a whole afternoon to explore town, and an early shoot at the mountain the next day. But before leaving, his eyes caught something on the desk. Leaning against the wall was a large matte photo print. A landscape of Mount Kinabalu at sunrise. Beautiful. Deep. Exactly his kind of shot. And in the corner of the photo stood the silhouette of a man holding a camera. His posture, his frame. Even the jacket, identical to Kevin's. Kevin's first night in Kundasang passed more peacefully than he expected. He wandered through the local market. Snapped some street shots at sunset. Ate a bowl of noodles at a roadside stall. And returned to the hotel just past 10 p.m. Nothing strange. Room 309 was so quiet. He could hear the wind slip through the window seams. But as soon as he lay down, he felt something. Not a sound. Not the incense smell, though it still lingered. A presence. As if someone were standing in the room. Just out of view. He switched on the bedside lamp. Warm yellow light flooded the space. No one. The door was locked. The curtains, still drawn. Kevin shrugged. Probably just fatigue. His mind playing tricks after a long travel day. He turned toward the wall and tried to sleep. But just as he began to drift off. Click. A small sound came from the desk. Like a camera shutter. Kevin opened his eyes. The room was still. His camera sat exactly where he'd left it. Lens cap on. He walked over to check. Battery fine. No new photos. Maybe it was the wind. Maybe something else. He shook it off. But the next morning, when Kevin opened his camera to review yesterday's shots, he froze. 5 new photos. Taken at night. In the room. The first, the bed, barely lit. The second, the curtain, slightly fluttering. As if a breeze came from inside the room. The third, the mountain photo. But now, the man in the corner had turned to face the camera. His features blurred. The fourth, a photo taken from behind. Of Kevin himself, asleep in bed. The last, a shadowy corner by the door. A tall, thin figure stood there. Face obscured by darkness. Kevin felt a chill climb up his spine. He was certain he hadn't touched the camera last night. It wasn't set to auto. And no one else had the key. Could it be a glitch? Old files from a previous guest. But Kevin was a photographer. He knew his camera inside and out. This wasn't a mistake. Someone, or something, had used his camera. That morning, Kevin couldn't focus. The scenery was still beautiful. Kinabalu shrouded in mist. But he kept feeling eyes on him. Always from behind. Back in the room that afternoon. He turned on the camera again. No new photos. But the wall clock had stopped. 3:12 a.m. His phone clock worked fine. Then came the second night. At exactly 3 a.m., Kevin woke up. Not from sound. But from an icy draft across his neck. As if someone had leaned in and whispered. With a breath that didn't belong to this world. This time, he didn't turn on the light. Didn't move. He just lay still. Listening. The room felt bigger. Like something was opening up. Waiting for him to fall in. And he began to notice. Time inside this room didn't move like it should. Everything felt slower. Repeating. The hallway light flickering. Footsteps echoing from far away, never arriving. The incense scent, never fading. It was as if the room wasn't letting him go. Or worse. It was trying to make him stay. On Kevin's third day in Kundisang. A light rain began early in the morning. Gray clouds sank low over the rooftops, casting a dull stillness over the entire town. Kevin no longer had the energy to go out and shoot. The past 2 nights had blurred the lines between dreams and reality, leaving him in a kind of fog he couldn't shake off. He sat by the window, staring through the misted glass. The faint daylight filtering through the curtains gave the room an eerie twilight glow, like it wasn't quite day or night. At 10 a.m., Kevin turned on his camera to review his photos. But the shots from the day before, the ones taken at the base of Mount Kinabalu, were gone. Not the night shots. Not a corrupted card. Just those images had been deleted. In their place, an 18-second video clip. Kevin was certain he never recorded a video. His hands trembling, he pressed play. The footage was taken from the desk. Fixed angle. The camera pointed at Kevin as he slept. But at the 9-second mark, a blurred figure drifted across the frame, paused right behind Kevin's sleeping form, and vanished. Kevin didn't scream, didn't panic. He just sat there, frozen, as if his body no longer knew how to respond. Something inside him shifted. He stopped trying to rationalize it, stopped pretending it was coincidence. Instead, an unspoken dread began threading through his every thought. That night, he decided not to sleep. He turned on every light in the room, set up a video camera to record the entire night, sat in a chair, clutching his camera, eyes fixed on the door. 3:12 a.m. Just like before. A faint clicking sound. But this time, not from his camera. It came from behind the curtain. Kevin stood up slowly, pulled the curtain back. Nothing. But when he turned around, he saw the bathroom door, slightly open. He remembered closing it clearly. And now the doorknob had a visible damp handprint. Kevin walked over, pushed the door fully open. The light flicked on automatically. The mirror was fogged. And across it, written in smeared letters, "Don't erase me." At that moment, Kevin knew he was not alone. The next morning, Kevin went down to the lobby, looking for Aisha. But she wasn't there. A different front desk clerk, older, quieter, seemingly uninterested, was on shift. Kevin asked about Aisha. "She's off today," the man replied curtly. Kevin held back his frustration. But inside, everything was unraveling. He considered changing hotels, packing up and leaving. But he didn't. Something was keeping him there. Not fear. Obsession. He needed to know what was happening. That afternoon, he wandered through town. No camera, no photography. Just walking, as if hoping the answers would reveal themselves. Eventually, he found a small photo lab, tucked away in an alley. The place was dusty, but open. An elderly man stood behind the counter, cleaning a lens. Kevin walked in, placed the photo of Mount Kinabalu, the one from room 309, on the counter, and asked, "Do you know who took this?" The old man squinted. After a pause, he answered slowly. "Young man named Jaden. A photographer, like you. He went missing here 4 years ago." Kevin clenched his fist. Jaden. 4 years. Did anyone ever find out what happened to him? The old man shook his head. No. They just found his camera in the room. And one short audio clip. "I'm still here." And then, nothing. Kevin sank into the nearest chair. Only one thought echoed in his mind. I'm walking in his footsteps. And if he didn't leave now, he might never return. Kevin left the photo shop, his hands still trembling slightly. The name, Jaden, echoed in his mind, like a melody from a song he'd never heard, but somehow remembered. That night, he didn't go straight back to the hotel. Instead, he walked the town's empty streets, scrolling endlessly through his phone, trying to dig up anything. Articles, forums, posts mentioning Jaden and the disappearance. Finally, he found an old news article. So old, the thumbnail no longer loaded. Headline: Young photographer vanishes at Hotel K, no body found. The article was short. Jaden Tan, 29, had traveled to Kundasang alone on a personal photography trip. Checked into Hotel K, room 309. After 3 days of silence, his family reported him missing. Hotel staff found his luggage untouched. Camera on the desk. But the memory card was completely empty. At the end of the article, in a smaller font, almost invisible, an unverified audio clip was found on Jaden's phone. It repeated a single sentence. "I'm still here." Kevin shuddered. Not because of what it said, but because that exact phrase. He had heard it. In a dream. Whispered. Right next to his ear. He rushed back to the hotel. This time with a single purpose. To search the room. All of it. Every corner. He needed to know what was in there. As he stepped inside, his eyes went straight to the photo on the desk. The sunrise over Mount Kinabalu. The man with the camera still stood in the frame, his back turned. But now, he wasn't facing away anymore. He had turned around. His face was blurry. But the longer Kevin looked, the more familiar it became. The jawline. The nose. The eyes. It wasn't someone who looked like him. It was him. Kevin staggered back. Raised his camera. Snapped a photo of the framed picture. He checked the camera. Nothing. The photo was empty. Just a mountain landscape. No man. He tried again. Still empty. But with his own eyes. The man was still there. Still watching him. Kevin stepped closer. Ran his fingers along the frame. Lifting it from the wall. And that's when he found it. A thin piece of paper tucked behind the frame. Yellowed with time. On it, written in hurried, trembling handwriting. "If you're reading this, it means I never left. My name is Jaden Tan. And this room is hungry." Kevin dropped to the floor. He didn't fully understand what it meant. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Jaden had been here. Jaden had been him. And if Kevin did nothing, Jaden's ending would become his own. Then, Kevin's phone buzzed. A message. From an unknown number. No name. "Don't leave halfway. The room hasn't made its choice." Kevin stared at the message on his screen. His grip tightening until his knuckles turned white. "Don't leave halfway. The room hasn't made its choice." No sender. No country code. Just the words. He tried calling back instantly. The phone responded. "Number does not exist." A chill crawled down his spine. It wasn't fear anymore. It was the realization that Kevin was losing control. Not just of the situation, but of himself. For 3 days. He had barely slept. Barely eaten. His mind spinning in a constant loop of repeating images. And now, everything was starting to blur. Slipping through his fingers like film in reverse. Slow. But relentless. That night, Kevin didn't turn on the lights. He wanted to see clearly. In the dark, he opened the window, letting the cold mountain air sweep in. It was late. The entire town seemed to be asleep, dreamless and still. He placed his camera by the bed, his camcorder on the desk, his phone fully charged and set to record audio. He was preparing, like for an experiment. Or maybe, a ritual. 3 a.m. No sound. No wind. Nothing. But Kevin knew. He wasn't alone. The air thickened, like something unseen had perched on his chest, making it hard to breathe. He pushed himself upright. The room was pitch black, except for the faint blue blink from his camera's screen. Everything looked the same, but the walls felt farther away. The room felt bigger than before. Kevin got out of bed. He moved past the desk, the bathroom, to the main door. He turned the knob. Locked. He swiped the keycard. Nothing. Again. Still nothing. He pounded on the door. But the hallway outside gave back no echo. Like the room had been cut off from the world. Panic surged. He rushed back, grabbed his camera, opened the last photo he took that day, and froze. It was a portrait, clear as day, of himself, facing away from the camera, exactly like the man in the Mount Kinabalu photo. He turned toward the mirror. It was still his face. But for a brief moment, the reflection flickered. Another face. Sharper cheekbones. Dark, sunken eyes. But still, too much like him. Then came the voices. Not audible words, but fragments. Memories that weren't his, overlaying his own thoughts. Another man packing a suitcase, sitting in this very chair. Another man. Jaden. Kevin remembered the old man at the photo shop. He left behind a recording. I'm still here. Now, Kevin understood. Here wasn't a place. It was a state. A prison of memory. A version of the past stuck in a loop. Distorted and endless. And now, it was his turn. Kevin sat on the floor. Eyes locked on the ceiling. A crack stretched across it like a winding path. A path he could no longer tell if he was climbing up or sinking down. The next morning, Kevin woke on the floor. He didn't know when he'd fallen asleep. Didn't remember dreaming. Just a lingering soreness in his body. And burning eyes. As if he'd been crying all night without knowing. The room looked normal. Too normal. No incense. No shadows. No signs of the night before. Just the Mount Kinabalu photo. Still leaning against the corner of the desk. Untouched. Silent. Kevin drifted through the lobby like a ghost of himself. And for the first time in days, Aisha was at the front desk. She looked up. Her eyes widened slightly. Then softened. Are you okay? She asked quietly. Kevin looked into her eyes. There was sadness in them. A sadness that didn't come from surprise, but from knowing all along. He didn't waste time. Aisha, I need to know what's going on. Room 309, it's not normal. You know that. She glanced around the lobby. Then spoke softly. Follow me. Aisha led Kevin to a small room behind the lobby. A storage space, mostly unused. She locked the door. Sat down. Hands folded in her lap. Her face was different now. No longer polite and distant. She looked exhausted. Like someone who'd kept a secret too long. That room was supposed to stay closed. She began. After Jaden disappeared, management sealed it. Said it was for the hotel's image. Kevin nodded. But clearly, they reopened it. Aisha sighed. For one reason only. Jaden's death anniversary. Every year, during the first waning moon of July. The week he vanished. The room is opened again. Not officially. But someone always comes. Always, at the right time. Kevin blinked. What do you mean? Aisha met his gaze. Every year. Someone arrives without a booking. No solid plans. And they always resemble Jaden somehow. Kevin's heart tightened. Resemble, how? The face. The stance. The eyes. Or just, the feeling. Like you. The air in the room felt thick. And then what? Kevin whispered. Aisha clenched her hands. Then the room wakes up. It chooses. It pulls memories forward. It starts to blur the line between who you are and who he was. This isn't the first time. She continued, eyes dropping to the floor. 3 years ago, a girl. Before that, a tourist from Thailand. They all left, different. Like some part of them was left behind. Kevin stepped back. Why not shut it down for good? Aisha was silent for a long moment. Then, in a barely audible voice, she replied. Because to escape, someone has to take your place. Kevin's breath caught. The photos. The reflection. The messages. The room was repeating a ritual. One it didn't need to be understood. It didn't care about logic. Or reason. It only needed one thing. A soul to stay. And another, to replace it. Aisha looked like she wanted to say more. But instead, she silently handed Kevin a folded paper. A schedule. For the next morning. At the very bottom, handwritten. Room 309, Memory Reversal Ceremony. 5 a.m. Not open to outsiders. Kevin held the paper. His heart felt hollow. He understood. If he was still here by morning, nothing would ever go back to the way it was. Kevin stepped out of the storage room like a man surfacing from a long, cold dive. His hand still clutched the paper Aisha had given him, its creased edges trembling as if it too had a memory to carry. He didn't go back to the room. Didn't go into town. Didn't take another photo. He simply walked. Circling the hotel. Once. Then again. Each time he stopped, he found himself staring up at a single window on the 3rd floor, room 309. A room he once thought was just a place to rest. Now he knew. It didn't just hold people. It held memories. And what it returned, was no longer yours alone. At exactly 11 p.m. Kevin returned to the room, one last time. He didn't turn on the lights. Everything looked the same. Peaceful. Deceptively so. But this time, he didn't see it as a guest. He saw it as an intruder trying to make his escape. He packed in silence. Not much, his camera, a few clothes, his phone, some small belongings. But before closing the bag, his eyes lingered on the room key. A small plastic card, now lying quietly on the desk. And the photo of Kinabalu. The man in the picture, him, or Jaden, or someone else, had turned his back. As if sending him off. Or, waiting for him to come back. Kevin reached for the camera, about to take one last shot. But he stopped. No. One more photo might be an invitation to return. He zipped up the bag and walked away without looking back. When he reached the lobby, Aisha was still there. She didn't look surprised. She simply stood up and bowed slightly. "You've made your choice, haven't you?" Kevin nodded. She opened a drawer and handed him a small notebook. "No one checks your luggage. But sometimes, guests carry things they shouldn't take." Kevin took it without a word. He knew she wasn't talking about objects. She meant memories. "Leave before sunrise," she added. "After 5 a.m., the ceremony begins. And by then, the room won't let you go so easily." Kevin checked his watch. 2:18 a.m. He left the hotel shortly after. No taxi. No goodbye. He walked alone. Through the misty road that led out of Kundasang. The same road he'd come in on, by bus. But this time, he didn't feel like a photographer chasing beauty. He felt like a man running from his own shadow. By 3 a.m., Kevin arrived at the bus stop. It was completely deserted. Just cold metal benches. And the faint, rhythmic chirp of insects that sounded like a heartbeat waiting. He sat down, opened his camera, almost out of habit. The memory card was intact. All the photos were still there. Except one. The very first photo he'd taken in this town. A casual shot from the bus window. Of Mount Kinabalu fading into the mist, was gone. In its place. A new photo. Same frame. Same light. Same view. But now, in the corner of the image, stood a man. Facing away. Camera in hand. Wearing the exact same jacket Kevin had on. He shut the camera off immediately. And for the first time since arriving in Kundisang, Kevin cried. Not out of fear. Not regret. But because he knew. A part of him would never leave that place. Morning broke over Kundisang. Thin clouds floated lazily across the slopes of Kinabalu. Birdsong echoed through the mist. Everything seemed to return to its rhythm. Peaceful, quiet. As if nothing had ever happened. Hotel K lit up again. Housekeeping moved from floor to floor. The front door chimed softly. A new guest walked in. A young man, maybe 28. Light backpack, headphones draped around his neck. His voice was fast, cheerful, Kuala Lumpur accent. "Hi there. I didn't book ahead. I just need a single room for one night. You've got something available, right?" Aisha looked up from behind the screen. Her eyes paused, scanning his face. Then lingered a moment longer on his eyes. There was a flicker of recognition. Then it passed. She didn't respond right away. Her fingers moved the mouse, stopped at a single red block on the screen. "Room 309. "We do," she said quietly. "Today is just the right time." The young man smiled. Not noticing. "Oh, and my name, so you can write it down, it's Ryan. Ryan Tan." Aisha typed it in. Her fingers hesitated. She swallowed. Then whispered, like a breath. "Another. Tan." No one said anything else. On the third floor. Room 309 was ready. The bed neatly made. Curtains already drawn. And on the desk, the photograph of Mount Kinabalu still sat there. Old. Motionless. But never dusty. The man in the photo. That familiar silhouette. Still stood with his back turned, facing the mist. But if you look long enough, look close enough, you'll see his jacket has changed. Text on black screen, white lettering. Some places don't keep people. They keep memories. And each year, those memories need a new body to live on. The loop never ends. It just waits for the next one to arrive at just the right time. And you, if one day you find yourself at an old hotel desk, and the receptionist says there's just one room left at the end of the hall, will you take it? If you've made it this far, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for spending time not just listening to a story about a room, a hotel, or a supernatural loop, but about memory. About the things that cling to us, no matter how many times we try to walk away. You see, sometimes the scariest thing isn't a ghost or a shadow in the dark. It's the feeling of losing control. It's when you no longer know where you end, and where the roles others, or society, have placed on you begin. Kevin stayed too long in a room he thought was safe. Just like many of us, maybe you, maybe me, have stayed too long. In a relationship, a job, a lingering pain from the past. Simply because we were too afraid to step out. But here's the truth. If you don't leave on your own, there will come a time when you'll be pulled. Not by something supernatural, but by the repetition of life. Habits. Fear. Delay. We do the same things. In the same places, for the same reasons. And then wonder why we feel stuck. And most importantly, that gut feeling you have? That whisper that says something isn't right? You should never ignore it. If a place makes you feel like you're suffocating, if someone makes you feel like you're fading, little by little, maybe it's time to leave. Even if it's just one step. Even if it's just to breathe. Because in this life, not every open door is meant to be walked through. And not every empty room is meant for you. Thank you for staying with this story. If you enjoy emotional, haunting, and soul-stirring tales like this one, don't forget to like, share, and turn on the bell. I post a new video every week. See you in the next story.